Hello and welcome once again. This is Jennifer McGuire, and I'm thankful you're here.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Just waiting for the other gals to arrive who are hopping with us today. So I'm just going to make sure my camera is in focus. Here we go. Good morning. Hi, Abigail. We've got Candy. Hello, Lori. Thanks for stopping in. This is the third stop on the hop. Hi, Mary. Kendra, good to see you. Hi, Carla. I think I've got everything ready to go. Just waiting for some folks to filter in. This is so cool. We've got Artsy. Oh, everybody's finding this, finding me pretty well. Hi, Janice. Lovely Malia. Thanks for coming in. Hi, Kimberly. I just want to keep an eye on my time. So I forgot to look at when I'm supposed to end, but I can go by my countdown clock. So that'll work. Hi, Teresa. We'll wait for a few more folks. We've been, I think, right around 40. Trying to see my count here. So we'll wait for a few more gals to find us. Hi, Janet. Just hopped by. Very good. You can just call me Paint, and I would end the confusion between all the Lories. That would be fine. So welcome to my part of the hop. And I just will explain a little bit here what I'm doing. I am originally a painter. I started my craft and art experience with ceramics and using acrylic paint. And I probably have more paints than the average person that might be here in our hop this morning. So full disclosure, I have a rack that spins that I keep all my paints in because I have probably 50 to 75 bottles of paint. Hi, Laura. Beth. Hi, Linda. Thank you, Linda. You did a great job. I loved your ideas. Hey, Picola. And so when I first started to paint, storing my paint bottles was an issue for me. And so I would throw them in a box or a drawer like this. And I had good intentions, and I would start stacking them up like this. But ultimately, they didn't fit in properly, or I didn't have enough to fill my container or my drawer. And every time, if you had this kind of a thing, every time you moved it, of course, they went all wonky. And I could never see the color storing them in this way. So for those of us who have limited space and maybe don't have a paint wheel to keep all your acrylic paint bottles in, and you may only have a half a dozen, I thought we could put some toilet tissue tubes to good use to help us stay organized with our acrylic paint bottles. So that's my part of the hop this morning. So I have a very large shoe box. That's what was available to me. And you could certainly use, these days, a lot of us get deliveries from Amazon. You may be able to come up with a smaller compartment or a box. Also, probably if you have any of those plastic bins that are shaped like a shoebox, that would work for you as well. So I started collecting toilet tissue tubes, and some of us may already have some of those in our stash because they come in handy for a variety of things. And I had my neighbor start collecting a few for me as well, so I would have enough to demonstrate my idea for keeping myself organized with my paint bottles. And so, and you can use paper towel tubing as well. So what I decided is that I would like it for my paint bottles to fit into the tube, but to have a little bit sticking out so that I could easily grab it. So if you have a spot on a shelf, or if you have a drawer that you keep your bottles of paint in, and they slide all over, the toilet tissue tube helps to keep them where you want them to be. And I like to use them upside down, and I use a Sharpie marker to write the name of the paint color on it, because that's helpful for me. Now, if you go by just the color, you wouldn't necessarily have to put the name on it. So what I did was I just measured where I wanted, and for me it's about 3.5 inches. And I will tell you that not all toilet tissue paper tubes are equal. Some of them are a little larger than others. And I just squished down the end. I just measured the size that I wanted, and I just squished it. And you can cut it with a pair of scissors. Most folks have a pair of scissors. Or you could use your paper trimmer. It works fairly well with a paper trimmer too. You just squash that one end. They bounce back pretty easily. And then today, for today's purposes, I have my hot glue gun plugged in so that I can adhere them together quickly. And what I've done, for thinking about a shelf situation, if you have a small spot on a shelf, you know, us crafty girls, we like things to look cute too. So what I did was I put my toilet tissue tubes together and I covered them with some scrap paper. A lot of us have plenty of scrap paper, wrapping paper. You could even really go one step further. And if you're really, you know, anal like I tend to be sometimes, you can spray paint the inside so they look nice on your shelf. And what happens is when you put your bottle of paint in, it would sit on your shelf. It's hard to show you with the camera, but it would sit on your shelf this way. See, and then your paint tube just sits in there, your bottle. And even if you have this kind from the dollar store, or this kind of paint, this also fits. Now, you would adjust the size of your toilet tissue tube, and of course the amount of space that you might have on your shelf. And then I would just take my Sharpie marker. You want something permanent because it's plastic, and of course if you use something that's not, this is called autumn brown. So for me, I probably would just do autumn brown, or BRN, something that you'll know what color it is. And then I just pop it into your little shelving unit, really, to store your paint. Now, if you have a box, or your space is limited and you're putting it in a box and you're going to store it under your bed or under your desk or even in a drawer, you can also glue your toilet tissue tubes this way. Okay, so what I did was, with my scrap paper, and this is cardstock weight, so this is a little heavier, and sometimes it's a little more difficult to get that to wrap around your toilet tissue tube. So if you pre-curl it, you know, you could take one of your bottles and just kind of give it a little curl. You've already got your tubes. Now you're going to measure it according to what you like. So for me, I think this is about 3.5, 3 and maybe 5/8. And so I just measured my paper accordingly. We all have bunches of scrap. It doesn't even have to meet in the middle. So I just took some of that scrap paper. Now, I probably would use white glue normally, but for today and trying to be quick, I'm just going to use my hot glue. Like I said, I've already got it plugged in. And so I'm just going to... Now, I necessarily wouldn't do this if I was putting this in a drawer or in a box. But if you have a little spot on your shelf, and you can build it. Now, this one I did 4 across the bottom, and then I added 3 on top. Depending on the depth of your shelving or your space, you can build it accordingly. You may only want 3 on the bottom if you only have a little bit of space. Okay, so you just have to adjust that according to what space you have available. So all I did was just take my scrap paper after I pre-cut my pieces to the size that I wanted. And then, of course, I wanted paper that coordinates, because that's just the way I am. So I'm just going to quickly, and you know what, if you have the glue gun, and that works very well, and it's real quick and easy. Probably most of us do have a glue gun. And chat is flying by, so if I am missing questions, I apologize. I'm just trying to keep up here. Now I'm going to show you in a second, once I put a couple of these together, I'm going to show you in a second how this works in a shoebox, or if you have a carton, or one of those plastic. You can get those plastic bins that are shaped like a shoebox. You can get those at your dollar store. Even if you have an open basket available, and you can drop these in. I'll show you in a second. So then all I did was I just started to assemble these and then glue them together. So I'm going to show you on this one. I'm going to add 2 more to the top. So all I did was just take my hot glue and put it in a couple of spots, and then just added my little rows of toilet tissue that I covered in my cute paper. Okay, and then your paint bottles fit in there, and I would recommend you leave enough room to grab the end. Now, if it is on a shelf, you may have problem with it popping all the way through. So take a piece of carton, or it's not coming to me, like chipboard, piece of cardboard, and you could really glue that to the back. You could really even use a piece of old or a scrap piece of scrap paper, just enough to keep your bottle from flipping all the way through to the other side. Okay, so even if you have a space in your drawer, these would sit down in your drawer. You can fashion to shape of your drawer and what space you would have, and so your bottles would fit in this way. And of course, you can see the color. I'm not sure that's across on the camera very well, but I have all mine marked on my paint wheel. And then, of course, you could line them up according to color combos. Now, I have this gigantic shoebox here. And I started to glue these. Now, of course, I was gluing them together for shelving. But see, you can fashion this to the size shoebox you might have, or if you have a box from Amazon. And the idea is basically the same. Now, of course, you can just flip these in a shoebox, but like I said, if you move it or transport it, they slide all over. This way, your bottles are going to stay right where you put them. Okay. And you can close that up, slide it under your bed, put it underneath your desk, and then the next time you open it up and you want to find a paint, it's right there for you. So that's what I've been thinking about for those of us who maybe don't have a lot of paint to store, but have just enough for them to be annoying in a drawer. Or if you do have a great place, you know, if you're storing them this way, some of the newer ones have this color dot on the top, but some of my paints from years ago, they didn't have that. And, you know, you can never see the color. So that's that idea. So if you have any questions there, of course, like I said, you can use paper toweling tubes as well. Now, for this kind of a bottle, they do fit in that toilet tissue tube. Of course, they're a lot longer. And these squeeze bottles of paint, they might come in a shorter size too. I'm not sure. But depending on the situation that you have and your storage available, as far as a shelf or drawers, this may work for you. So I was thinking this would be, once I got started, it kind of would go a little quicker. Sometimes you think 30 minutes is a long time. Dee Dee paints the color on the lid. Yes, that would work too. Cheryl, that certainly would work too. Now, I've been painting for a lot of years, and so I've come to know a lot of the names. So names work a little bit better for me sometimes, but certainly a visual. And I noticed on Linda's last segment with the her little stamp pad storage unit, she had a little color swatch on the end of each of her ink pads. Now, I personally probably would write the name out on the edge as well, but certainly a little blob of paint would be a great tip for that. So I was also thinking about I don't know if this is really an organizational idea, but I like to doodle and draw and mess around in some art journals, and I'm not very good at coming up with ideas and doodling. So I have a tip. I guess this would be more of a tip rather than an idea as far as storage. But we all have these little tiny books. You can get these at the dollar store. You can pick them up. You could even use a little, they have small little composition books that you can pick up. And so what I started to do a little while ago was started to put my doodles in a little book. So that when I'm working on a project, if I want to jazz up a page, even a color page, and I want to add something to the background, sometimes I sit and think, oh, what kind of a doodle can I come up with? And so I can flip through my little doodle book. Now I've just started this, so I don't have a whole lot of doodles in here. But every time I come up with an idea, or I see another gal arting, or I see something in a magazine, I think, oh, that would be a great doodle. I open up my little book that I just keep here by my workstation and add it to my doodle book. So then when I ever need a quick idea, you can go on the internet certainly and Google, but sometimes I just don't feel like doing that or taking the time to do that. So this is what I've come up with. And I just keep that right. My shelving unit around me is an old shelving unit from an office. And so my desk here is metal and my shelves are metal. And another tip that I could give you too, if you have that kind of a setup, is I use a lot of magnets that stick right onto my shelving units. I even stick my scissors and my other craft tools to the magnet, and that just attaches to the side of my shelf, and that helps me keep organized, and I can always find what I'm looking for. Even my X-Acto knife, I love this little X-Acto knife, but it is little and it disappears if I don't keep it attached to my magnet, and then I can just pop that onto my shelf. Now that doesn't work, of course, for everybody, because you may not have a metal surface near where you're working, but that's a good tip to help me stay organized. So now let's just see. We have 55 folks here. I'm not sure if everybody was here at the outset. So I'm just going to go back and show you that I've been collecting toilet tissue tubes. And I built this little unit to store my bottles of acrylic paint to help me stay organized. And all I did was just measure what size I wanted. I wanted enough. I wanted them to be small enough. That one's not cut yet. To be able to grab the end of my paint bottle. And if you do put your colored paint on your lid, or you have that little color dot and you want to do it this way, it's really convenient to grab it by the end of your bottle. And you just trim them down to the size that you want. If you have a box that you're storing them in, like the shoe box, you could have a kid's shoe box where it's smaller. Maybe you only have a dozen bottles of paint that you need to store. So you can fashion it according to your needs. If you have a shelf space that's small, you may only want to do three tubes across two, and then go up higher. So all I did was take some scrap book paper out of my stash. I'm sure most of us have a stash of paper. And so I just decorated my little toilet tissue tube with scrap paper. And of course, you don't need your trimmer for this too. You could use a pair of scissors, but I used my trimmer. And I just, a lot of times, girls, I got to tell you, I'm not too big on measuring and rulers. So, right, you could use wallpaper, you could use wrapping paper, you could paint these. You know, you could spray paint them. Whatever works, whatever you might have available to you. The idea is, I think, to use some stuff that we have around, repurpose some things, and use it to help us be organized. And so I'm just use my little trimmer, and I think it measures like 5.5 inches all the way around. And if you're using a liquid glue, I don't have too much luck with the, it's not coming to me now, like the stick glue, the, oh gosh, you know what it's called. It's not just not coming to me. I don't use that very often because I can't get it to stick very well. But if you want to pre-curl, especially if you're using like a cardstock weight paper, like pre-curl it, it will go around your toilet tissue tube a lot easier. Oh my gosh, what is the name of that glue? That's the stick. Glue stick. Thanks, Beth. Oh my gosh. It's like you get in front of the camera and your brain goes numb. Okay. So then all I did was just take some hot glue. Sorry if this is a repeat for most of you, but maybe for some folks that have come in late, because we have a little bit of time left. And I apologize. I was going to look to see who's next up after me, but I'm not certain who's after me. Maybe one of the gals could put that in. Now this is getting a little crooked because I'm trying to read chat and glue. All right, and so then you just build it according to like if you're doing it strictly to put inside of a shoebox, you wouldn't want to set them up this way. Okay, you probably would just fit them in your shoebox, you know, and glue them right next to each other. And you probably would not even take the time to cover them. Now these are not trimmed down; these are all different sizes. But see, if I'm storing in a box, I'm going to glue mine together this way. And the idea is you want them glued together so that when your paint gets in there and the weight of the paint bottle, you want them glued together so they don't knock over when you move the bottle. So let's see who's next. Lucia's next. Okay, great. So Lucia is next. I've got about 5 minutes. Not sure if there's any questions for me. Okay, Mary posted the link. And don't forget to take time to be creative and enjoy your journey, girls. And we'll see you at Lucia's. Thanks for stopping by. See you at the next top spot. Bye, ladies. I don't see the spinning thing, so maybe I lost some of you.